Bill Harris here. On Christmas night, the United States conducted airstrikes against ISIS targets in northwest Nigeria. President Trump announced the operation on Truth Social, framing it as retaliation for ISIS attacks on Christians in the region. The strikes were conducted in coordination with Nigerian authorities, but they raised significant questions about U.S. military intervention in Africa, the accuracy of Trump's claims about Christian persecution, and what this means for future operations. Today I'm going to break down what actually happened, examine the context around violence in Nigeria, look at the Nigerian government's response, and analyze what experts are saying about this operation. Let's get into the facts. On Thursday evening, December 25th, President Trump announced on Truth Social that the United States had conducted airstrikes in northwest Nigeria. Let me read you his statement as reported by CNN. Tonight, at my direction as Commander-in-Chief, the United States launched a powerful and deadly strike against ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria, who have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians at levels not seen for many years and even centuries. Trump continued, I have previously warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay, and tonight there was. The Department of War executed numerous perfect strikes as only the United States is capable of doing. According to U.S. Africa Command, as reported by ABC News, the strikes were conducted in Sokoto State in northwest Nigeria and killed multiple ISIS terrorists. The command initially stated the strikes were carried out at the request of Nigerian authorities, though that specific wording was later removed from one statement. According to CNBC Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth posted on social media that he was grateful for Nigerian government support and cooperation, and warned there would be more to come, according to CBS News. The Pentagon released video footage showing what appears to be a missile being launched from a ship, though specific details about the number of strikes, exact targets, and casualties have not been provided beyond the statement that multiple ISIS militants were killed. Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed the operation shortly after Trump's announcement. According to CNN, the ministry stated, Nigerian authorities remain engaged in structured security cooperation with international partners, including the United States of America, in addressing the persistent threat of terrorism and violent extremism. This has led to precision hits on terrorist targets in Nigeria by airstrikes in the northwest. This strike didn't come out of nowhere. Trump has been escalating his rhetoric about Nigeria for months, claiming that Christians face an existential threat in the country. In early November, Trump threatened military action against Nigeria. According to Fox News, Trump said he would go into Nigeria guns a-blazing if violence against Christians didn't stop. He asked if there was a possibility of U.S. troops on the ground in Nigeria and replied, could be. At that time, Hegseth posted on social media that the Department of Defense was preparing for action. In November, the Trump administration also designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern under the International Religious Freedom Act. As reported by ABC News, this designation indicates that the administration has found Nigeria has engaged in or tolerated systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom. Trump also rolled out new visa restrictions targeting individuals accused of orchestrating religious violence against Christians in Nigeria, according to Fox News. So the Christmas Day strikes represent the follow-through on threats Trump has been making for weeks. The question is whether those threats were based on an accurate assessment of the situation in Nigeria. Here's where things get complicated, because the situation in Nigeria is significantly more nuanced than Trump's framing suggests. Nigeria does face serious security challenges. Militant groups including Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa Province, ISWAP, have carried out attacks in northern Nigeria for years. These groups have kidnapped civilians, burned villages, and conducted suicide bombings. Christians have absolutely been victims of these attacks. However, the characterization that this is primarily about religious persecution of Christians is disputed by the Nigerian government and by security experts who study the region. According to CNN, Nigeria's government has said armed groups target both Muslims and Christians, and U.S. claims that Christians face persecution do not represent the complex security situation and ignore efforts to safeguard religious freedom. Al Jazeera provides important context from their correspondent Ahmed Idris, reporting from Lagos. To look at the issue of alleged Christian genocide in Nigeria, Sokoto State is probably the last place many Nigerians would think it's happening. The vast majority of the state's population is Muslim, and there had been few, if any, attacks on Christians in the region that he could recall. That's significant. The strikes were conducted in Sokoto State, which, according to Al Jazeera's reporting, is predominantly Muslim and hasn't been a major site of attacks against Christians. The violence in Nigeria is driven by multiple factors. According to CNN, observers say other violent conflicts arise from communal and ethnic tensions, as well as disputes between farmers and herders over limited access to natural resources. Nigeria's population is roughly split between Muslims in the north and Christians in the south, but the security issues are more complex than simple religious conflict. There are ethnic tensions, economic conflicts over land and resources, and various militant groups with different motivations. Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu issued a Christmas message on the same day as the strikes. According to Reuters via News Nation, Tinubu called for peace in his country, especially between individuals of differing religious beliefs, and stated, "I stand committed to doing everything within my power to enshrine religious freedom in Nigeria and to protect Christians, Muslims, and all Nigerians from violence." Daniel Bwala, special advisor to President Tinubu, told CNN, "The U.S. and Nigeria are on the same page in the fight against terrorism." So the Nigerian government is cooperating with the U.S. on counterterrorism operations, but they're also pushing back against the characterization that this is primarily about persecution of Christians. According to CNBC, Reuters reported on Monday the U.S. had been conducting intelligence-gathering flights over large parts of Nigeria since late November. So this operation wasn't spontaneous. The U.S. military has been conducting surveillance and intelligence gathering in Nigeria for at least a month, presumably identifying ISIS camps and preparing potential target packages. The fact that AFRICOM was able to conduct strikes on Christmas night suggests there was advanced planning and target preparation. You don't launch precision strikes without intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance work happening beforehand. What we don't know is the specifics of what was targeted. Were these ISIS training camps? Were there specific high-value targets? How many people were killed? Were there any civilian casualties? The Pentagon has not provided detailed information beyond saying multiple ISIS terrorists were killed. The video released by the Pentagon shows what appears to be ship-launched missiles, suggesting these were strikes from naval vessels in the Gulf of Guinea, or potentially cruise missiles launched from ships in the region. It's important to put these Nigeria strikes in the context of Trump's broader pattern of military action since returning to office. According to The Intercept, Trump has spent the first year of his second term touting his efforts to end conflicts and claiming to be a peacemaker, even as he has recently made war in Iran, Iraq, Nigeria, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, and the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean in 2025. The Intercept continues. Most recently, the Trump administration has been killing civilians in the Caribbean Sea and Eastern Pacific Ocean. The military has carried out 29 known attacks at sea since September, killing at least 105 civilians whom it claims are narco-terrorists. Just last week, the U.S. conducted large-scale strikes against ISIS targets in Syria, following an attack that killed 2 U.S. soldiers and an interpreter. So the Nigeria strikes are part of an aggressive pattern of military action across multiple theaters. Trump campaigned on being a peacemaker and limiting U.S. military intervention abroad, according to CNN. But since returning to office, he has also ordered strikes on Iran's nuclear program and overseen a massive military buildup around Venezuela, with threats of potential strikes there as well. The tension between Trump's rhetoric about ending wars and his actual use of military force is something we need to keep watching. There are several significant questions raised by these strikes that haven't been fully answered. First, what is the legal basis for U.S. military action in Nigeria? Nigeria is a sovereign nation that the U.S. has diplomatic relations with. The Nigerian government says they're cooperating with the U.S. on counterterrorism, but the exact nature of that cooperation and whether there was a formal request for strikes is unclear, especially given that AFRICOM removed language about the strikes being at the request of Nigerian authorities from one of their statements. Second, how accurate is the Trump administration's characterization of the threat? If, as Al Jazeera's reporting suggests, Sokoto State hasn't been a major site of anti-Christian violence, then what exactly was the nature of the ISIS presence there? Were there imminent threats, active plots, or was this more of a preemptive strike against a general ISIS presence? Third, were there civilian casualties? The Pentagon says multiple ISIS terrorists were killed, but they haven't provided information about whether any civilians were killed or injured in the strikes. Given the history of drone strikes and airstrikes resulting in civilian casualties, this is a critical question. Fourth, what does more to come mean? Hegseth warned there would be more strikes. Does this mean the U.S. is planning an ongoing air campaign in Nigeria? Are there plans for ground forces? What's the scope and duration of U.S. military involvement going to be? Fifth, what are the political implications in Nigeria? The Nigerian government is cooperating now, but how will the Nigerian public react to U.S. airstrikes on their territory? Will this strengthen or weaken the Tinubu government? Could this create anti-American sentiment that actually helps ISIS recruit? These are all questions that need answers, and right now we're getting limited information from the Pentagon and the White House. Security experts who study Nigeria have expressed concerns about the Trump administration's approach. The characterization of the situation as primarily about Christian persecution is seen by many regional experts as an oversimplification that doesn't capture the complexity of Nigeria's security challenges. The Nigerian government itself has pushed back on this framing, emphasizing that Muslims and Christians are both victims of violence and that the government is committed to protecting all Nigerians regardless of religion. There's also concern that military strikes alone, without addressing the underlying economic, social, and governance issues that allow groups like ISIS to operate, won't solve the problem and could potentially make things worse by creating resentment against the U.S. and the Nigerian government. So here's what we know. The United States conducted airstrikes against ISIS targets in northwest Nigeria on Christmas night. The strikes were coordinated with the Nigerian government and killed multiple ISIS militants, according to official statements. President Trump framed the operation as retaliation for attacks on Christians and warned of more strikes to come. What's less clear is the accuracy of Trump's characterization of the situation as primarily about Christian persecution, given that security experts and the Nigerian government describe a more complex security situation involving multiple factors. It's also unclear what the long-term plan is, whether there will be additional strikes, and what the broader implications are for U.S. military involvement in Africa. The Nigerian government is publicly supporting the cooperation, but the strikes raise questions about sovereignty, legal authorization, civilian casualties, and whether this approach will actually improve security or create new problems. This fits into a broader pattern of the Trump administration using military force more aggressively than Trump's campaign rhetoric about being a peacemaker would suggest. We've seen strikes in Syria, Iran, Yemen, and now Nigeria, along with a major buildup around Venezuela. The question is whether this use of military force is strategic and effective, or whether it's reactive and potentially counterproductive. Right now, we're getting limited information from the administration, which makes it difficult to fully assess the situation. I'll continue following this story as more information becomes available. If there are additional strikes, if we learn more about casualties, if the Nigerian situation develops in significant ways, I'll break it down for you. If you want to stay informed on stories like this that don't get enough detailed coverage, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Drop your thoughts in the comments about how you see this situation. This is Bill Harris, and I'll see you in the next one.